Bassett Medical Center has welcomed 10 new students from the Columbia-Bassett Medical School program, Class of 2025, to Cooperstown. WCDO News spoke with Dr. Henry Weil, who'll be overseeing the program again this year. Here is that full interview.
I wanted to talk to you about the Cooperstown-Bassett Medical School program, Class of 2025. My first question about this is, how long has this program been going on at Bassett?
Since 2010.
2010. And have you been running it since then?
Yes.
So it's been going on for long enough that I can ask you, typically with the student doctors that are involved in this program, do many of them wind up staying here? Because obviously there's a critical doctor and nurse shortage in upstate New York. Do many wind up staying in the upstate region, or do many wind up going to their hometowns again?
Well, here's the math. So it takes 4 years to get through medical school. So the first class that graduated here graduated in 2014. And then, depending on what people do, the shortest time you could possibly take to get through residency is 3 years. So that's 2017. But most people have a longer residency and or fellowship after residency than that. So actually only a fairly small number of people have completed the rest of their training. Now, a number of people have stayed at Bassett to do part of their residency here, so that's a good thing. And there are 2 full-time staff at Bassett itself and 2 part-time staff that do work for Bassett that have come out of this program. So it's early going yet. It looks like we're going to have over time, a number of really well-trained physicians come back to this region as a result of this program.
It'd be safe to say that this program was started with the idea that you could try to retain as many of these doctors, student doctors, as possible.
That was part of it. There were other concepts underlying the program, but that was definitely one. We also want to be a place that trains future physicians that are likely to go back to any rural area. And most people probably could guess at this but might not be aware, but the percentage of people going to medical school who come from rural areas and are therefore likely to return is much lower than the percentage of patients in the United States in rural areas. So there's been a real mismatch there, and it accounts in part for the shortage of physicians in rural parts of the country.
So that's something that's probably been happening for a long, long time then.
Well, it has been happening for a long time, and I think we also know that there's been a little bit of a shift back in the last couple of years, maybe related to the pandemic and some other factors. But most of rural America has suffered from outmigration of young people, no matter what they're doing. So this whole thing is complicated by the fact that even young people from rural areas that go to medical school have a pretty good likelihood of not going back to a rural area. But there's a much higher percentage of people that will go to a rural area if they are from one, and also if they train in a place that's in a rural area.
Tell me about some of these, you don't have to get specifics, but about some of the people mentioned here for the class of 2025. What are your overall impressions of this class, previous classes? What do you think?
Well, this is an incredible group of young people. We've been extraordinarily lucky in this Columbia-Bassett partnership. We've had, on the average, since we opened, one of the highest numbers of applicants per space for our 10 medical school spots in the entire United States. And the usual measures of the sort of caliber of the learner in terms of people who've come here have been among the highest in the whole country. So we've had enough applicants that we've been so lucky as to be able to try and seek out people who are mission-driven, who recognize that healthcare, both in rural and non-rural areas in the United States, could serve our people a lot better. And so this program really seeks to admit people, one thing being that they might be interested in a rural place, but also who are just interested in improving the quality and the access and the fairness of access to healthcare in the United States.
I think the one thing that I like to see on this particular list, and you alluded to this before, these people are coming here from all over the place.
Yes, I mean, we have hundreds of applicants for our 10 spaces every year. One year we had 1,000 applicants for our 10 spaces. We are very fortunate that a lot of people want to come to the program. We're able to look at this very broad group of people and make offers to people we think are going to be kind and, very careful and safe for patients. And again, interested in being in a rural area, interested in learning performance improvement techniques to make healthcare better. And then we really do focus on the sort of whole patient. And these are people who are interested in taking care of people's emotional burdens that they carry as well as their physical burdens. It's really a very special group of young people.
How did you go about being able to get 1,000 applications for this program? How did the word get out about this?
That's a really good question. Well, partly it's the affiliation with Columbia. This is fundamentally these students spend a chunk of their med school time at Bassett, but their diploma is from Columbia, and it's the same as every other Columbia medical student. And Columbia has been around for a long time, and it's thought of as one of the better places to get a training in the whole country. There's only a handful of other schools that are thought to be in that same echelon. I would hasten to say that there are a lot of great medical schools in the United States, but the fact that Bassett has for 100 years been allied with Columbia had a lot to do with getting so many applicants. The other thing, though, is the fact that we're trying to make healthcare better by teaching young physicians performance improvement techniques so that if there's a problem in the healthcare place that they are at, they have the skills to fix that problem. And also the idea that we're training people to better take care of the psychological needs of patients. Those two things have been extraordinarily resonant with young people applying to medical school, at least in a subset of young people applying. And so people aren't seeing quite that opportunity in most other med schools, and they're really drawn to it here.
Are there any statistics, and it might be too early to tell, that show that the pandemic is maybe making young people more interested in going into the medical fields?
The ability to make a judgment like that, it's not easy. It's true that in the year right after the pandemic broke, applications to med schools went way up. It is thought that your explanation is the correct one. And I think seeing some of the great scientists at work trying to solve the problem of the pandemic, people like Anthony Fauci, who, you hear people criticize Dr. Fauci, but for someone like me who went to med school in 1982, he was a legendary public servant back then. And, here he is as an old person, really, continuing to work so hard to keep as many Americans healthy and alive as possible. I think that that's been very inspiring to people considering entering the caring professions.
Do you have any final thoughts to add about this particular program, this particular class?
Well, I think this particular class, we're very lucky to have these young people in our midst, and they're going to be absolutely amazing practitioners and caregivers, and that I hope people in the community, when they meet them, will get to know them and welcome them. I think that would be the main thing.
All right, Dr. Weil, thank you very much for your time.
Take care.
Again, that was Dr. Henry Weil of the Bassett Medical Center, who again this year is overseeing the Columbia-Bassett Medical School program class of 2025 in Cooperstown. Thanks for listening.